Mrs. Meenakshi Lekhi.
Mr. Chairperson and Arif Saab, Ori Saab, Batraji, everyone here is concerned about this particular act, and most of the people who have been here since morning have already gone through a lot in the session. I'll try to be as brief as possible because next session has to start and 10 minutes is the time allocated to me. So I'll consider with few stark examples of how the addresses began and how it has come to this passe right now. First and foremost, that 3 countries were made around the same time. I mean, 3 later, but 2 to begin with. 1947 rights, and there was a construction of a country called Pakistan, and there was a construction of a country called India. And subsequently, another country called Bangladesh from the same landmass was created. Now, what is the situation and what is the cause of conflict? In the morning, somebody gave the figures, but the correct figures are at the time of partition in 1947, about 33% Hindus were there in Bangladesh, 22% Hindus in Pakistan, which is now Pakistan, and in India had about 8 to 9%. And today, we see a picture where in Pakistan, the minority in numbers, because there is no concept of minority, less than 1% are Hindus. In Bangladesh, less than 8% are Hindus. And in India, it's about 18% on record. A lot of people have different things to say. It's about 20% or something like that. Now, the numbers itself indicate how the communities in a country are treated. No country can progress until and unless you work as a syncretic society, as Arif Saab constantly talked about. And he constantly talked about that if there is a law and order problem, and his emphasis, and I really appreciate that emphasis, the emphasis was that rights are rights. And whoever may die, why should there be a fight of identity? It's an administrative issue. It's an issue where people have died. Whether they are Hindus or they are Muslims, they are the citizens of this country. And that is the ideal-most society, as Arif Saab was talking about. And that is the ideal-most society I think everyone in the audience is striving for. We all want country to reach a level that our politics of identity takes a back seat. And we all treat each other as citizens of India, and everything else can be within our homes or within the confines of our social, religious places. But when we move in society, when we progress in society, it should be one constitution, one law, one society, and one administration. But are we living in an ideal society? Are we living in a society which was dreamt of, which was enshrined in the Constitution? Answer obviously is no. Because we have not succeeded in forming a syncretic society. We have failed in making people believe that they can live together. We have failed in making people believe that we are one nation. We have failed that Muslims in this country should still look up to Pakistan. Why should that happen? That means we have failed even in educating them. And I'm purposely not going on the figures. I'm not going on the figures because I think if there is a victimization of a Hindu woman, I would expect a Muslim man to stand up against that kind of act. If there is a victimization of any or demolition of a Hindu temple, I would expect a Muslim to stand up and say no to it. Are there no such Muslims? I don't think so. I think there are such people. But these people like Arif Saab, are such a rare commodity. And that is why he deserves all the respect and applause that we can give. People who can talk about one nation, people who can stand up and leave their cabinet berths on issues like Shah Bano deserve the maximum support any community can give. And I remember Singh Saab in the morning session ended his address by quoting Maulana Abdul Kalam Azad. Can there be a problem any Hindu will have with Maulana Abdul Kalam Azad were his words? And I'll say the same thing. Can anybody in the audience or outside, irrespective of religion, can have any problem with what Arif Saab has to tell us? Answer is no. Nobody can have any problem with these ideas and these ideologies. But unfortunately, we are not able to push through the change which people like Teesta Seetalwards and Vrinda Grovers need. We are not able to teach them how the country needs to progress. We are not able to control Sonia Gandhis of this country as to how country needs to be run. And for this, one very big example, and again I'm going back to history and Shah Bano's case, the judgment of Shah Bano, where some money was given to a woman who had been given triple talaq at a very late age in her life, and court only gave a very minuscule amount as a maintenance amount. In the history, there are two such cases before that judgment. And before that judgment, when two such cases were there, no Muslim community, nobody, not one person from the Muslim community, had the audacity to stand up and politicize the issue. Reason? You had a strong prime minister. I'm not very, what should I say, bhakt of Indira Gandhi any one way, because all her wrongdoings also I know. But one thing was very clear, she was a strong, dominating, maybe corrupt or bad, whatever, but she was a strong prime minister. And nobody dared to oppose her, because she will literally chew them up, literally. They did not have the capacity to arm twist her. If there was anybody who arm twisted others, it was she. Now at the time of Shah Bano, Rajiv Gandhi was the prime minister. Though in majority, maximum number of seats with Congress, and that was the time to strike and make India as an integrated, syncretic, one society. He chose not to. And under the plea of Shah Bano, everything else fell. So when we talk about division in society, Hindu-Muslim conflict, these forces have always been there. There have always been two forces. One, the good force, which keeps us together, and one, the evil force, which tries to divide. Depending on our leadership, each one becomes dominant. And depending on our present leadership, the evil forces have become dominant. And these evil forces, under their dominance, are, again, we are back to the same old theories. You know, these are hundreds and thousand years old theories. Al-Harab, Islamic nations, non-Islamic world. These are all ancient theories, everything in the history. And depending on which part, which generation, which area you're coming from, what your leadership is, these things get diluted. And an example of Australia was also given in the morning. Immediately, the Maulana's word was taken back because people in that country said that this Maulana doesn't know what's good, what's bad. And I always say, if there are any changes, who is going to benefit? After all, Sachar commissions, Ranganath commissions, and all these things do not help the Muslim cause. For the simple reason, if there is impoverishment, if there is lack of education, if there is religious bias, it's not because of the Hindus alone. You have chosen not to participate. Unfortunately, a very interesting figures are being quoted. in the newspapers. Muslims do not get admission in public schools. I'll call it nonsense and bunkum. For the simple reason, public schools have their own ideas, who they want to admit, who they don't want to admit. And based on maybe financial criteria, maybe whichever criteria, right, wrong, good, evil. And they're really not bothered about. I mean, they are dukandars, they are like traders. Now, how many applied, how many got in, is what the real figure will show. Now, nobody is showing those figures. You're only quoting the figures that 5 Muslims got admission in this school, 25 got in that school, 60 got in this school, 10 got in this, nobody made it in this. How many applied? How many qualified the basic criteria? And why so many more prefer missionary schools? They don't like public schools. Who's going to change that mindset? Will the public school go to their homes and change the mindset? And when we talk about participation in social events, and I always maintain and believe that the impact, like I was talking to Arif Saab before the session, and just one line came across, and he said, you can fight the law. Law is bad. You can change, amend, do away with. But how do you fight the thought? If you're going on bringing this evil thought constantly through the TV channels, by giving the exposure, the kind of exposure Teesta Setalwad's, Farah Naqvi and rest of them get, by constantly badgering that Hindus are anti-Muslims, Hindus will become anti-Muslims. They no longer will feel safe with them. And when I start quoting these figures, that this is how Muslims treat Hindus in Pakistan, this is how Muslim majority treats Hindu in Bangladesh, this is how Muslims treat Hindus in Kashmir, this is how Hindus get treated in northeastern states, where will the Muslims go then? Again, both sides are harming the syncretic integration of society. We are again dividing society into religions, and our caste or religious-based identity becomes far more important than the national identity. I think the fight is about what the Constitution says. The fight is about who is going to restore the sanity in this country, and who will be the people who are going to oppose NAC because it's harming the very synthetic structure on which this nation stands. This nation stands on the basic premise of no discrimination. No discrimination in any form. And this nation stands on the very premise, no appeasement also. We suffer together, we grow together, we develop together, and very interestingly, a very bad example, in all crimes, you pick up this Falak's case, and which I was going to write about also. Falak's case, the man's name is Dilshad. 3 women being trafficked. And constantly Farah Naqvi in her write-up is using the name as Rajkumar. And I wanted to laugh. I said, is this deliberate or she's ashamed? And she's again identifying the man not because of his crime, but because of his community. And to give an example of national integration, I think it was a complete integration. You have Hindus and Muslims on the same page of the criminal side. You have the Hindus and Muslims on the same page on the political side. You have Hindus and Muslims trading together, working together on the same side. And if you have all that, why this law then? So Muslims as well. Thank you.
Thank you so much, ma'am.